Inspiration. We will begin with August 17th. And the reason we begin with August 17th is that is Krishna Jayanti this year. And there are many reasons why we're here, but if it weren't for God, none of us would be here. So let us remember Lord Krishna. Here's the quote. A pleasing personality helps you win friends and influence people. Add character to that formula, and you keep those friends and maintain the influence. Zig Ziglar. I'll read it again. A pleasing personality helps you win friends and influence people. Add character to that formula, and you keep those friends and maintain the influence. I learned 2 secrets about friendship when I was living at the ashram. And it was fascinating because I learned these secrets when I had no friends. Here in Niagara Falls, in high school and university, there are lots of friends, lots of social networks. And when one moves to the ashram, or at least Sandipani, all of that is taken away. Your only friend is you, essentially. And that's where I learned about friendship, which is fascinating, how much we can learn just being by ourselves. The first secret I learned is that a friend is not someone who is friendly. A friend is someone who is dependable. That they may not be polite, they may not be a smooth personality, but when you need them, they will be there. Many times we have people around us they give us gifts and they're affectionate, but when we really need them, they don't pick up the phone call. Right? That's the downfall of call screening, that, I know who's coming and who's calling, so I just don't pick it up. How many times have we done that? Right? What if that person's in need? And the second secret I learned is a friend is not someone who is friendly. A friend is someone who is conducive to our growth. Again, many nice people who say nice things, but if I'm doing something wrong, then you need to tell me that I'm doing something wrong. And you may, or I may face the risk, or you may face the risk of our friendship breaking up, but that is what is needed for our growth. And if you go to The Dark Knight Rises, that's what Alfred did for Bruce Wayne. He told him what he needed to be told and how he grew from that. If he didn't, Bruce Wayne could have got killed. Gotham City could have disappeared. We'd have no hero. So what Zig Ziglar is trying to say in the first line is a pleasing personality, someone who smiles a lot, is affectionate, shares compliments, etc. But if they don't have character, if they don't have integrity between their body, mind, intellect, if they don't live up to the principles that they're talking about, etc., then you can't keep those friends, because we know such personalities. If I tell you one thing but act in a different way, do you think you would have come to this retreat? No, because there's no growth that could have happened. And to maintain that influence, we always want to be around people we want to be like. But if there's no character, then I'm not going to want to be around you, so you can't have any influence on me. Here, character is highlighted, and there's a message where if you lose some money, something is lost. If you lose time, something more is lost. If you lose character, everything is lost. Money comes and goes, time comes and goes, but character, think about the bad habits that we have. How difficult it is to overcome a bad habit. Think about if we have any good habits, how hard it was to develop that good habit, like thinking before we speak. Matters like that. Character. And what we do with our discussions, what we do with our retreats, we try to build character. Okay? And we begin with this. Nina, pick a day. And the mic's behind you. You can read the quote, and then I'll follow up.
February 2nd. Until you commit your goals to paper, you have intentions that are seeds without soil. Anonymous. So I'll read it one more time. Until you commit your goals to paper, you have intentions that are seeds without soil.
Awesome. What kind of planner should you use? You should use a planner that you can circle and cross and write and so on. Connecting this to the scriptures, this quote. A thought begins, I believe the term is called para. Para means it's manifesting in the infinite. It is beyond our comprehension, but that's where it begins. And even if you think about our thoughts, where do our thoughts come from? Where do our thoughts go? They begin with the infinite. After that, it gets into a stage I believe is called madhyama. Madhyama is where they begin to be seen. So that source that is infinite, now it's taking some sort of shape. Then pasya. Pasya means I can see it now. So it's taking more of a shape, and now I can wrap my head around this. And finally, it's vakya, where I manifest that thought. So from the infinite, it becomes more tangible, and finally, I can express that. So here too, we all have lots of dreams. When we are quiet, suppose we're driving or flying, we have all of these wonderful ideas, these wonderful dreams, these wonderful goals. And as soon as we leave that circumstance of driving or flying, or whenever you're walking, whenever you're quiet, do those dreams and goals and ideas get accomplished? They don't. Because they've not manifested fully. And if it's not manifested fully, then I can't manifest them further. And now with technology, this is becoming even more of a predicament. That I keep things in an electronic form, but I keep forgetting it. It's not in my sight. But back in the day, and even in that red bag I have a paper planner. Because time is already so intangible. And time goes fast, time goes slow, and sleep time disappears. But with the planner, I make that which is intangible more tangible. In the movie Iron Man and Minority Report, etc., they take that which is intangible and try to make it more tangible. They keep opening it up so they can, what's manifested, they can manipulate. We have to make that which is intangible, tangible. And time, money, people are the greatest sources of stress in our lives, in that order. Time, then money, then people. And managing people is much harder than managing time. But they're the same principle. If you and I can learn how to manage time, we'll learn how to manage money, we'll learn how to manage people. That helps us to learn to manage our minds. And I've said this to all of you many times in discourses, one-on-one, use paper. I'll give you a couple of more examples of this. In goal setting, one of the practices is write down your goals. Because it's self-affirming then. I keep seeing it. And another practice in goal setting is use the words that you want to become. When we are going around and sharing qualities we want to develop, many people said discipline. So use the word discipline in your writing, in your reading, in your quotes, and it will begin to manifest more. I appreciate this quote a lot. Just today, while you were all arriving, I keep this piece of paper with me, always. This is brain 2. Brain 1 is in here. This is brain 2. Brain 2 simply tells me at what time, where I have to be, and what I have to do. So there's a time slot, there's a where slot, and what. Then brain 1 can function. A lot of our inefficiency is because we don't know where we're supposed to be, at what time, and we generally know what to do. But if I don't know where I'm supposed to be or at what time, then how am I supposed to do that? So lock these into place, and then brain 1 can operate. And I drive a lot, so I write so many ideas down, and then I transfer these into my planner, where it becomes even more real. I keep doing that over and over again. I've done this since elementary school, and it's helped me a lot. And I would share that you should try to do the same. Have you ever played a Minesweeper? And you know when you've locked in certain ones that it's definitely not there, then you can start working on ones? That's like this. Begin to use paper and watch how the intangible becomes tangible. Okay? For each of these quotes, I'll try to spend approximately 5 minutes. It's like that those sports shows where they have 2 minutes and then the bell goes off like that. So that's sports, so you only need 2 minutes to think about that. This is philosophy, so we need 5 minutes. Rishabh, you have the next quote. There's a mic behind you.
The happiness of most...
To turn the mic on.
Yes. What?
What's the date?
February 21st. The happiness of most people we know is not ruined by great catastrophes or fatal errors, but by the repetition of slowly destructive little things. That's by Ernest Dimnet. I'll repeat it. The happiness of most people we know is not ruined by great catastrophes or fatal errors, but by the repetition of slowly destructive little things.
Gautam Buddha has shared that 2/3 of our problems are what? Self-created. And in Yoga Shastra, Yogasana, one's physical health, it says over 90% of our illnesses are caused by ourselves. Imagine we didn't cause our own illnesses. Imagine how much more money America would have. Right? We cause our own illnesses, and then medicine becomes a huge business. Here, what this quote is sharing is, we tend to find that joy, and then we tend to let go of that joy. I was teaching a high school class in Toronto, and I had asked the group, how can we be happy? And one very insightful young girl said, we have to allow ourselves to be happy. We all have the potential to be happy, but do we want to be happy? And this is where I said, where do we want to be reborn? And he said, yeah, moksha, but do we really want to be free? Think about it. If we really wanted to be free, we wouldn't create problems for ourselves. But we have a pseudo-addiction to sorrow. We thrive on stress and arguments in relationships and so on and so forth. We like the drama. I saw a shirt that said, outside drama, inside Rama. I love those corny Indian sayings. Some people mature in different ways. I know I'm mature because I become more Indian as I mature. At least I believe I do. And the repetition of slowly destructive little things. See, we don't go out and hurt people actively in major ways, but slowly, like being passive-aggressive, as an example. Or making it a habit not to wake up on time. Or, okay, I'm going to go to the gym for an hour, then it gets cut down to 50 minutes, then 40 minutes, then 5 minutes. See, it happens slowly. And it leads to that destruction. The destruction of a building is immediate. The creation of a building takes a long time. The destruction of a personality tends not to happen immediately. It can, but for you and I, it will happen slowly if we don't pay attention to what has allowed us to be happy. And think, when are you most happy? Right now you don't look happy, but I know you're happy. And I say that because we're in satsang, as was mentioned. We're in a sattvic environment. The sattvic happiness is very different than a rajasic happiness or a tamasic happiness. What is tamasic happiness? Tamasic happiness is when I see someone who's failed. It makes me happy, I'm better than they are, or at least they didn't go past me. Rajasic happiness is, say, sense pleasures, that I had more cheddar cheese on my chili than the next person did. I finished it. I saw some of you hoarding the cheddar cheese. A sattvic happiness is finding a quote and it really going deep into our personality, that I really feel that this quote is about me, this quote is moving me. We have to experience sattvic happiness more, and that helps us to let go of chasing after rajas and chasing after tamas. And a good example of that is our sleeping habits. I recently wrote in the e-vichar about what's the story, morning glory. Do you know where that phrase came from? What's the story, Morning Glory? From? It's an Oasis song. What's the story, Morning Glory? So, when we learn to wake up in the morning, we won't want to sleep as late. And I've shared this many times. Why we sleep so much is because we don't have a better reason to wake up. Whenever we have a better reason to wake up, why would we sleep? That doesn't make sense. If you have a better reason to be downstairs than upstairs, you won't be here. There is that logic in the way we operate. So here too, who is the responsibility on? Ourselves. Find a reason to wake up. Find a reason to live by sattvic joy. Then we won't let rajas and tamas slowly pick us apart. All right? And connecting this to sports, in tennis, many players win tennis by the errors of other players. Unforced errors, essentially. They don't even do anything spectacular, but they let the other person self-destruct. This happens a lot in lumosity. If you ever played lumosity, which you should, once you get into a rut, you just keep getting into a greater and greater and greater rut. So, and who caused it? I caused it. I should just shake out of it. But I just keep losing more and more. Siruvani, next quote. Third time.
Well, I can project. We all know this.
For our speakers, for our listeners abroad. This is Canada, right? So they are abroad. The Canade. It's called the Canade.
Oh, I call it Canadian.
July 25th, my niece's birthday. You might not be what you say you are, but what you say you are. Zig Ziglar again. I'm sorry.
I think there's a typo.
You might not be what you say you are, but what you say you are.
Oh.
Sorry, I threw me off.
There's punctuation in that sentence, right?
There is.
Okay. How many times have we heard, as you, continue. So you are, so you become, so you do. So what's being shared here is, initially, you might not be what you say you are. That's when I'm casual. I may tell you I'm a very fast runner. I may tell you that I don't overeat and so on and so forth. But when I'm by myself, the truth will come out that maybe I'm not that fast. I need to be in better shape or eat in a more disciplined manner. Here, honesty is highlighted, and it may not come off like that, but we have to see they're the same sentence, but just one is with greater emphasis. Are you being honest with who you are? Tomorrow I go to a physician, and I have a heart murmur. I go to a cardiologist, and they say, so how are you? What's going on? Everything's fine. No problems whatsoever. That physician is so happy. They give me a bill and tell me to leave, right? It was no effort on their end. But what happens to my heart murmur? It's still there. It gets worse. Don't I have to be honest with the physician for them to help me? This happens in the law field too, where a client won't tell their lawyer the full truth. Then how can they help them? It becomes a great challenge. We have to be honest with who first? With ourselves. I asked a group of people recently, do you have to learn to forgive others first or learn to forgive yourself first? So let's have a quick decision. How many of you believe you have to learn to forgive others first? By show of hands. How many of you believe you have to forgive yourself first? By a show of hands. Okay. You knew that because I was already talking about being honest. So I already gave you the answer. You can't forgive someone else unless you learn to forgive yourself. I cannot be honest with someone unless I am honest with myself. And this is a challenge we have in our relationships with others. Whether it be our parents, whether it be a significant other, we don't know how to love ourselves. We don't love ourselves. And then I get into this circumstance where I'm supposed to share that with someone else, but there's nothing to share because I've not learned how to love myself. This is why I encourage all of our CHYKs, study Vedanta. Study Vedanta in a systematic, intimate way because it's a study of love. Vedanta, tomorrow we'll be celebrating Holi. And many of you are in the Foundation Vedanta course. What is Holi the festival of? Festival of colors? There's more than that. Close enough. Unity in diversity. That is the festival of Holi. The colors make us all uniform, despite that diversity. And in Vedanta, love is equated to identification. You identify with yourself the most, you love yourself the most. I identify with myself the most, I love myself the most. So here, I have to learn to love myself. And that's what Vedanta teaches us, is this is the science of love. And then I can share that. So you might not be what you say you are. When I only know myself as a casual level, I say something, I am something else. That's hypocrisy. That's mityacharaha. That is a cause for confusion. But what you say, you are. We have to be vigilant about what we're thinking, because the way we think manifests as our words manifest as our actions. I'd written an article for a camp. It was called Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life. And when one is in high school, and in university as well, what is the greatest sphere of influence in our life when we're in high school or university? Friends. That's why our parents say, don't give in to peer pressure and be vigilant about your friends. Because they affect our thoughts. Up until the age of 15 or so, it's our parents, whether good or bad. But after that, it becomes our peers. And I know, we all know this. I went to high school 3 minutes from here. And the greatest gift that I received during that time period, and it's a gift that continues to give, is my solid group of friends who helped me grow out of being limited with confidence to being ideally unlimited with confidence. All right? Let's take who's come from the farthest and the newest. Aarti. Yes, that was a test. I was waiting for you to mess up.
All right, April 17th. No matter how bad someone has it, there are others who have it worse. Remembering that makes life a lot easier and allows you to take pleasure in the blessings you have been given. Lou Holtz. I'll read that one more time. No matter how bad someone has it, there are others who have it worse. Remembering that makes life a lot easier and allows you to take pleasure in the blessings you have been given.
What do we take for granted the most? That which is close to us. And so what is closest to us? The word Atman means the innermost. We take for granted the spirit or the presence of God the most. And because I take that for granted, I believe I'm the ego, intellect, mind, body, etc. So now taking that initial taking for granted, we've become experts. That which is closest to us I ignore. It's very easy for me to ignore that which is further from me. And here is blessings. What are some of the blessings that you and I have standing in this room? How about central heating? How about an amplifier? How about the fact that you can sit down? I went to Auschwitz-Birkenau, which is in Poland. It was the largest Nazi concentration camp. Their one form of torture was they would make certain people work all day, and then they would have to be in imagine the space of this podium. So almost 4 feet by 4 feet, and they just have to be there, erect. It's very difficult to sleep standing. I don't even know if it's possible to sleep standing. And so you work all day, then don't sleep at night, and work the next day, and don't sleep at night, and eventually your body naturally is breaking down. That's obvious, but then your mind breaks down too, and that's a very difficult way to leave this world. And you and I, we're going to be standing for 10,000 steps, maybe 15 or 20,000 steps, but we'll lie down on our duvets and our body pillows and electric blankets, maybe not here, but in our homes. But do we ever take that in its full appreciation, that I have a place to lie like that? Today, as I was walking to my car, we had watched a show yesterday called True Detective. And they were showing a part of the States which is not the most pleasant to live in. And as Sheila and I were driving home last night, I was asking her, have you ever felt unsafe in Niagara Falls? Because I've lived here my whole life and I'm biased. I'm like Homer in Springfield. So I'd asked her and she said no. And today when I was walking across a random parking lot to my car, and I felt the same way, I said, I don't feel unsafe at all here. But there's been other times in my life where I felt unsafe in different cities. But we take that for granted. And that's what this person said is, I haven't seen you for a long time, and we just got to small talk, and he said, it's great to be able to breathe fresh air. Yeah, it is great to be able to breathe fresh air, because in many cities you can't, like Toronto. You can't breathe fresh air. These blessings that we have in our lives, it's good to recognize them without comparing it to someone else. Many times we look at the next person and say, oh, I have this and they don't, which is better than being unhappy. But then there's that judgment. There's that judgy auntie look, as was thoughtfully shared. Right? I'm not better than you. I'm simply different than you. But if I focus on what I have and you don't have, I put in the implication of better and worse. So ideally, we should be happy for what we have. Secondary is to help me learn what I have if I compare someone else. But that's not the end goal. This is a reason why I wanted to share thoughts on these quotes. A lot of these quotes are by business leaders. And they focus on, though they called this book inspiration, I feel this book should be better called as motivation. Motivation takes one so far. Inspiration is that next level. Psychology takes you this far. Religion takes you to the next level. Skills take you this far. Purity of mind takes you to the next level. So I wanted to share thoughts on these business quotes to add that greater element to it. And that's me presuming I'm able to, but at least in my mind, I believe that's what's happening. No matter how bad someone has it, there are others who have it worse. One thought on that is, Guruji often shared with us, what's the worst that can happen? You die. So what? You're born. It's not the dharma. You're born again, and it's better. You have a new body then. It's like insurance. Your car crashes. You went through insurance. You have a new car now. Remembering that makes life a lot easier and allows you to take pleasure in the blessings you have been given. Why we're taking steps for Siruvani, as Nina had shared, many of those workers, whether paid or volunteers or students, they do 10K each way every day, 6 days a week. We do it for 48 hours in a retreat. This, like our visit to Siruvani, was not about them. It was about us. This weekend is to empathize with how fortunate we are and how hard other people work. And both of us smile the same way. They work hard and smile. We have blessings and we smile. Nikita. Fail.
January 18th. Don't be afraid to take a big step if needed. You can't cross a chasm in 2 small jumps. Don't be afraid to take a big step if needed. You can't cross a chasm in 2 small jumps. Anonymous.
Chasm. It's like when Homer crosses a chasm. Have you seen that episode where he's on the skateboard? What's the funniest part of that episode is that he is in the ambulance, and then the ambulance is driving and it crashes into a tree, and then he falls down that chasm in the same way. Fear. How many people in this room experienced some sort of fear this past week? And what's awesome about this is that all of us experienced the same emotion, but it was caused by totally different reasons. Some people were afraid to miss a flight. Some people were not afraid to miss a flight. Fear, see? And it hurts us. Many people share, I like the pressure of having to write a report in 24 hours or 48 hours. Or many people like the stress of operating in front of people, whether it's a race or a concert or whatever it is, or a timeline. But that negativity is always with us. That weight is always with us. And if I'm trying to run and I wear a backpack, I'm not going to get faster, I'm going to get slower. Fear, like any negativity, is a weight on our personality. We have to let go of this fear, like I had said, by knowing, what is the worst that can happen? I fail. Haven't we learned so much from our failures? Failed relationships, let's take that as an example. Didn't we learn how to be a more loving person? A more considerate person? A more passionate person? A failed game. Like foosball. We were playing foosball downstairs, and I said, foosball is like lumosity. Don't keep losing. Get better. That was a focus at YEP. Some people who were completely useless at playing frisbee became some of the best players. They were beasts on that frisbee field. And those who are at YEP, you know who I'm talking about. It's that idea of letting go of this negativity. And the worst that can happen is that I fail. You can't cross a chasm in 2 small jumps. For the higher aspirations in our life, we have to give everything to get everything. Like in school. When we were in elementary school, high school, university, eventually we're going to get to a program where we just have to make a choice with a program and we can't turn back. Getting married would be similar to that. With dating, there's not as much of a commitment. But when you get married, the aspiration is that I will not turn back now. Having children as well. We have to train ourselves to make such elemental decisions by taking more minor decisions. That was one of the qualities I had shared I wanted to inculcate, was to make insightful, impactful decisions. Because right now we have a lot of time to make decisions, but sometimes we won't have those opportunities. And the only way to train ourselves to do that is to do that at a relative level. What do you want to eat? This. Fine. And no turning back. Where do you want to go? This. No turning back. A lot of the times we're lost in indecisiveness. By show of hands, how many of you would qualify yourself as an indecisive person? Right? So many of us. Some people are like, That's fear. Fear of what may happen. Fear of what may not happen. The intellect helps us to overcome such fear. When I went to the Vedanta course, I had analyzed this decision to such an extent that I realized it will be worse for me not to go. By me staying here will be more detrimental than taking on something completely unknown. And it was completely unknown for me at the time. So logic, analysis definitely helps us get to that point, and then we just have to move. And what's the worst that can happen? Please keep that in mind. Puja Swami Tejamananda often shared, don't tell God how big your problems are. What should you do? Tell your problems how big your God is. What is there to be afraid of? When Puja Swami Tejamananda was here last year for Pura Janagita, and many of you were here too, I got to spend a different type of time with him because we had meetings and Bhiksha and so on. And though he was teaching Purajana Gita, which is Lord Rama's address to the people when he became the king, the message I took from Puja Swami Tejomayananda was 2 Hindi words. Those Hindi words were, Daro Mat. Don't be afraid. That's simple. Sheila.
April 8th. It's Ram Navami. Three billion people on the face of the earth go to bed hungry every night, but 4 billion people go to bed every night hungry for a simple word of encouragement and recognition. Cavett Robert. 3 billion people on the face of the earth go to bed hungry every night, but 4 billion people go to bed every night hungry for a simple word of encouragement and recognition. Cavett Robert.
Do you and I have troubles sleeping because we ate too much or we ate too little? And I would say the same for waking up. Do we find it difficult to wake up because we ate too much or ate too little? Or do we find it difficult to sleep at night because maybe we're lacking meaning? And the same in the morning, as I said about waking up versus having a purpose. A simple word of encouragement and recognition. I'll give you 2 secular studies about this. NPR did a study where superiors who criticized their subordinates, those subordinates did better off than circumstances where the superior ignored the subordinate. That criticizing someone, at least, there's a form of recognition. It's not positive, but it's, I know you exist. But if I just ignore you, that hurts at a much deeper level. And this is beautiful in Vedic culture. That's why we always, whenever we see each other, we greet each other. I offer that recognition to you in a positive. Whenever we think of recognition, whose recognition do we think of? Only our own. Today I was joking about foosball. I was talking about 2 of my cousins. They're very good at foosball too. And then the people I was playing with accidentally scored on me. And I'd shared that I was jealous that we were talking about someone else, so that's why I got distracted. But this is a joke, but in truth, whenever we start talking about someone else, don't we begin to drift or get frustrated? And either we'll insert ourselves into that conversation or we will leave that conversation. So many times I've been in circumstances where I'm talking about a subject, like something like, oh, I drove from Niagara Falls to Buffalo to go to a certain city, and that person will say, oh, I've been to Niagara Falls, and they go on and on. What does that have to do with the fact that I just left the city? But it's about them. And it's not about me. I'm just simply stating the facts. This is where I came from, and this is where I'm going, because you asked. But I didn't ask you if you've been to Niagara Falls. But it's about one's own recognition. This ego is very tricky. And encouragement. Isn't it that we find it much easier and we're much more ready to criticize someone than to compliment someone? And when we do compliment someone, do we even mean it? That famous and hilarious incident where Puja Gurudev, Puja Swami Chinmaya Dhara is leaving immigration. And the gentleman there says, have a good time. So he looks back and says, how? And that person looks away. He doesn't know what to say. He's just saying words, have a good time. And we do the same thing. How are you? And we don't even hear those words. We don't respond to those words. I've shared this many times. Tomorrow, when people ask you how you are, not you, but when you meet many of the people in the community, they'll say, how are you? Say something like, you know, a spider crawled into my ear last night and I can't even hear what you're saying right now. And this, oh, good, you too. Or me too. Right? Just a reaction for them. Anyone may be like that. I was giving prasad to some Balaver students. And I was saying something positive to each student, how, good luck with school or whatever it may be. And to one boy I said, good luck with school. And he looks up at me and says, you too. I'm 4 times as old as you. What do you mean school? We should be more encouraging of people because we win. Remember, the words I use for you, I hear those words first. When I say you're a caring person, I hear the word first. I've recognized the caring in you. If I call you an angry person, it's because I know what anger is. See, you know why we criticize people? Because that's all we've been told. So we're expressing it too. If my father criticized me, then I'm going to criticize you. It's hard to break out of that syndrome. We have to start to recognize the greatness in ourselves, and we'll be able to recognize the greatness in others too. What I've heard about Puja Swami Chinmaya and what I've seen with Puja Swami Tejamayana, they're unprecedented leaders because they find the greatness in each person and put them where they can grow more. All of us have qualities, and it would be your quality if you can identify those qualities and help us to grow those qualities further. Encouragement. Recognition is letting go of me being the focus. Encouragement is you being the focus. Okay? Krishna. Just, these quotes are so small, but you can just keep going on and on and on.
It was in December 21st. I think that's when we started the yatra. So, December 21st. Problems are nothing but wake-up calls for creativity. Problems are nothing but wake-up calls for creativity. Gerhard Gerschwanter.
Oh, yeah, him. He was here earlier today. How many of you, by show of hands, have never experienced a problem? How many of you, by show of hands, have never grown? Mentally, I mean. Problems help us grow because we have a tendency to become complacent. Remember I said we take for granted that which is close to us. That's a form of complacency. See your standing spots. If we did a discourse in a half an hour again, the tendency is that you'd stand in the same spots because you're kind of setting up your territory. And that's why you kind of kick out this way a little bit, or kick out this way. We become attached. We just have this general tendency to get attached to our physical space. Even the tables downstairs when you eat. At Sandipani, when you drank tea. In discussions, when you sit in a discussion, you tend to have that same spot. We have this tendency to get attached. In the same way, we have the tendency to not appreciate that problems help us to grow. Like shaking matters up. One person's trash is another person's what? An obstacle to one person is did I just make this quote up? Opportunity to another. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. All that is being shared here is it's not with these eyes, it is with one's vision. Vision is that antakarna, for those who are taking the Foundation Vedanta course. It is the software that determines the font and the intensity and so on and so forth. Wake up. How many of us have seen the movie Peaceful Warrior? He has everything. He tells Socrates, I get straight A's, my dad's rich, I'm on the team, I sleep alone when I want to. Like all of these things, he has everything. And then Socrates asks, well, why do you keep waking up why can't you sleep at night? Why do you keep waking up at 3 a.m. every day? And that problem in his life woke him up. The argument where they're in the bar and he gets into a fight with his friend, you see, he's reflecting during that moment. That's a problem, but he uses that to wake himself up. And Socrates says, many of us spend our whole lives without ever waking up. And this is why Gautam Buddha often shared, I'm awakened. Sure, nirvana, enlightenment, etc., but in common language he would say, I'm awakened. A lot of these quotes, whether it's about problems, challenges, fear, etc., it's the same message. What is the worst that can happen? And you and I are more fortunate than the rest. See, when our parents moved to this country, that is the great country of Canada, then if they did not work hard, they would have starved, they would have froze. You and I, if we don't work hard, that's not going to happen to us. Honestly. That's a reality check. It will not happen to us. And so, our parents worked hard and prevented that from happening. For us, we have not experienced such problems. We do have problems. I'm not negating the problems we have, but it's a very different type of problem. Theirs, they didn't let those problems break them down. Theirs really was, what is the worst that can happen is, yeah, they will die. For us, we have that blessing that it's not that, but that doesn't mean, we shouldn't take it seriously. We should still grow. And here's where relationships are ideal. Problems begin with relationships. If I'm not in a relationship, no problem. When I'm in a relationship, a problem. And the more relationships there are, Sheila's going like this to me right now. We're going to have a talk after. The more relationships you have, the more problems. When I'm in Niagara, I have this amount of problems. But then when I'm with Niagara and Pittsburgh, then I have many more problems. And then I should say, I don't want to go to Pittsburgh, I just want to stay in Niagara Falls, and I just want to teach one class. But how will I grow then? These are opportunities for one to grow. And all of our circumstances are different. Same principle, but different circumstances, whether it's secular work, whether it's nieces, nephews, whatever it may be. Please remember that the only way to turn an obstacle into an opportunity is with vision. This is what Vedanta teaches us, to live life with a vision. Madhav. Pick a date and with the microphone. You have to pick the date with the microphone. And then read the quote from that date.
I choose a random date.
Whatever you'd like.
December 4th, Jay-Z's birthday.
I talked about Lord Krishna's birthday. Someone else Jay-Z.
Also
Jeebus. Save me. Jeebus. Jeebus from The Simpsons. Go ahead.
December 4th. Don't hate the player, hate the game.
I was going to take this book. No!
December 4th. Courage is resistance to fear. Mastery of fear, not absence of fear. Courage is resistance to fear, mastery of fear, not absence of fear, by Mark Twain.
Not absence of fear. There's naturally going to be fear in our lives. There's going to be problems in our lives. But when I become an Aryan, what does Aryan mean? Foundation Vedanta Core? Master of circumstances. Aryan means master of circumstances. When I am a master of circumstances, the circumstance implies fear. Okay? Where there's change, there's going to be fear. But when I become a master of circumstances, then that is courage. That is being noble and pure. How many of you have your journals from Chinmaya Inspiration Yatra 2? Read the quote on the back of an A. On the front, sorry. The softest pillow is a clean conscience. An Aryan is someone who has a pure mind, and so they sleep well. You and I can't sleep when we're afraid of whatever it may be. Even think of a scary story that one reads or an incident that happens. So fear will be there. But to know that fear is part of the circumstance and I am different from the circumstance. One of my good friends, his mother was diagnosed with breast cancer, and she went to see a naturopath. And at the end of their first session, she was down, naturally. And he had said, don't say you have cancer, say the body has cancer. See, you're different than your body. So your body has cancer, but not you. Presenting it this way, fear is in the circumstance, but I'm not the circumstance. There's articles, there's beings, there's circumstances, but I am different. I'm that divinity. And how to develop courage, we've discussed that a fair amount this evening already. Last quote, Vinay.
April 22nd. The fear of rejection or failure creates inaction. Once again, the fear of rejection or failure creates inaction. John Maxwell.
I believe I gave all of you, that was the first yatra. I had given Pujaswami Tejumayana this commentary on Hanuman Chalisa. And in that, he writes that there's 3 types of starters. The first type doesn't start because of fear of challenges. The second type of personality starts, but when the challenge arises, what happens? They turn back. And the third type of personality, they start, and when the challenge arises, what happens? They rise higher. And if the challenge grows, so do they. And who is a great example of this from our scriptures? Please get this right, please get this right, please get this right. Who? Hanuman. I just talked about Hanuman Chalisa. Hanumanji. Surasa keeps growing, he keeps growing. She keeps growing, he keeps growing. She keeps growing, he becomes small. See, he was such a great starter that he knew when to become small to overcome that challenge as well. Some of us are egotistical to give, some of us are egotistical to receive, that we're not ready to ask for help, as an example. The idea of rejection, I notice that some of you, when you come to read these quotes, that your voice is not as it is when suppose we were speaking in the corner over there, or even your body moving as well. And why that is because of the fear of rejection. Suppose me and you are talking one-on-one, you don't have fear of rejection. But here, there's others, and suppose we doubled the amount of people, tripled the amount of people here. Then there's that fear that that person's rejecting my thoughts, rejecting my appearance, rejecting me. So there's fear. But if there's no possibility or plausibility of rejection, would you be afraid? If you have to give a speech in front of yourself, would you be afraid? I know what's in the mirror sometimes is, is scary, but it's just you. If you don't judge yourself, then there's no fear. And so I don't act. And Pujaswami Chinmaya is adamant that action is the insignia of life. And so naturally, inaction becomes the insignia of death. And how is it that you and I are going to become free? What is the first yoga that we need to take up to become free? Karma yoga. All of the students from Toronto, how much time we were spending on chapter 3, 4, 5, which is to purify the mind through pure actions, then I will be ready for contemplation, which is the subject matter of chapter 6. But if I don't act, then I can't purify. And if I don't purify, I cannot contemplate. If I can't contemplate, I cannot be happy. So it begins with action. Foundation Vedanta course students, I had said, ignorance or vasanas manifest as what? Desires manifest as what? As thoughts. Thoughts manifest as actions. I'd shared that vasanas are unconscious, desires and thoughts are subconscious, and actions are conscious. To start changing my unconscious, I have to go through the conscious, which translates to the subconscious, translates to the unconscious. Actions are important. And this is a classic example of that. We are clear about our actions, and so everything aligns. Our time management, our money management, our resource management, our people management, when we're clear about the action. But like driving, if I don't know to go left or right or which highway to take, how dangerous I am to myself and everyone around me. I'll take up the last quote for the sake of completion, and I took Lord Krishna's Jayanti, which is the 17th. Let's take May 8th. What's the significance of May 8th? Of what? Pujya Gurudev's birthday. The work of the individual still remains the spark that moves mankind forward. The work of the individual still remains the spark that moves mankind forward. Igor Sikorsky. What's he famous for? I've heard that name before. Igor Sikorsky? Okay. Yeah, it is a helicopter, you're right. Correct. We studied in the Foundation Vedanta course that world perfection or societal perfection can only be achieved by individual perfection. Basic economics. If there's an extra dollar in the room, we're all richer. If the individual changes, society changes. In a sports team, let's take a Srimad Bhagavad Gita actually. If Prince Arjuna leaves the war, what happens to the rest of the Pandavas? What happens to their morale? It collapses. One person affects everyone else. In a hospital, in a family, etc., etc. So you and I sometimes think, but how can we do it? How can we make society a better place? How can I change this hospital? How can I change my family? How can I change this organization? You can. How does any change take place other than it starts with an individual? Whenever we believe we cannot, we are insulting the presence of that divinity. How Hanumanji was able to do so much, how all of the Guru Shishya Parampara has been able to do so much. One person. How many Balaveer students do we have in North America that study every Saturday or Sunday? 15,000. Who did it begin with? One person who's never met a single one of these Balaveer students. One person. You and I can be that person too, if we understand and appreciate the importance of our potential. I was in a satsang where I was talking about such an idea, and at the end I said, we can! And everyone said, we can. And I said, we will. And then everyone said, we will. And I said, I said the second word, I said, we must. And everyone said, we must. And I said, we will. And then one person in the front goes, we wish. We will.